Tennessee beats Mississippi State 41-34 in a game where you had everything you wanted and everything you didn't. Refs, cowbells, and of course, big plays down the stretch. Oh, we're going to talk about this. Welcome to the Vol Patriot Podcast. I am your host, the Vol Patriot, Patriot of the Volunteer Nation, and my co-host, J-Mello. This podcast is for the people, by the people, specifically Tennessee football, but also college football as a whole. We're going to cover weekly updates, pre-game and post-game reviews, in-game specifics, and of course, hot takes. We will talk about things that most sports podcasts are afraid to discuss. You'll hear it here and only here on the Vol Patriot Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, go Big Orange, go Vols. Good morning, Vol faithful. It is a beautiful day yet again here on the Vol Patriot Podcast. Guys, J-Mello is with me today, and we're going to really talk about this game. A lot to break down, a lot to discuss. Some good things, some bad things, but ultimately, we get the win, guys. We get the win, and that's all you can ask for. But that's not all we can ask for. I mean, we can honestly ask for our wide receivers to catch the football. We can ask for fair play. I mean, there's a few things we can ask for. We can ask for less cowbells. Probably not going to get that. J-Mello, tell us the stat lines out here. Let's talk about what Tennessee did. Let's talk about what they did.
So Tennessee's stats actually look pretty good. Joey Aguilar threw for 335 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 2 interceptions, but it's unfortunate to see him with all of these interceptions because they weren't actually his fault. The receivers are at fault on this one, which makes me wonder how many of those interceptions prior to him coming to Tennessee were actually his fault and not due to his receivers' inability to catch the ball.
That's interesting. A good point.
DeSean Bishop had 11 carries for 72 yards, 1 touchdown. Star Thomas had 10 carries for 33 yards. Joey had 7 carries for 21 yards and 1 touchdown. Peyton Lewis had 3 carries for 10 yards. Your receivers were great as far as the stat lines are concerned. Mike Matthews had 6 receptions for 118 yards. Chris Brazzell, 6 receptions for 105 yards. Miles Ketzelman, 4 receptions for 42 yards. Braylon Staley, 4 for 41 yards. And Star Thomas, 3 for 29 yards. You rushed for 136. You received for 335. You know, it looks good. It looks good on paper, especially when you compare it to Mississippi State. Blake Shapen, he threw for 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
Shout out to Colton Hood.
Mississippi State's rushing, Fluff Bothwell, he had 23 carries for 134 yards. He had the most by a long shot. The next closest was Devon Booth with 17 carries for only 58 yards. And then it just sort of goes down.
Yeah, it tapers off.
And then it just tapers down from there. So they did rush for 198 yards. Not a whole lot more than Tennessee, but the defense seemed to have a harder time stopping their run game than their pass game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because they're receiving Aiden Williams, 1 reception, 49 yards. Number 8, whose name I do not want to butcher, so I'm just going to say number 8, had 4 receptions for 40 yards. Brennan Thompson, who you talked about in the pregame as being a big threat, he had 3 receptions for 33 yards. Anthony Evans, 5 receptions for 33 yards. And again, it tapers off after that. So a total of 180 receiving yards compared to Tennessee's 335. The difference is clear. However, while those receiving numbers are big, there were some really big missed opportunities, really big dropped passes. Of course, there was that fumbled punt return at the beginning. And unfortunately, I think that fumbled punt return really kind of set the tone for Tennessee for the rest of the game, and they just never could get their feet underneath them. Now, granted, there were some really terrible referee calls, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but it just didn't feel like Tennessee could get their feet underneath them after such a big
muffed punt.
Yeah, it just
it's a momentum flipper.
It really it's almost like they just could not get that momentum back. That was kind of tough. That was definitely tough to watch.
Yeah, so you brought it up. The muff punt was a big deal. This goes back to Boo Carter not being out there due to, the off-field, off-season situation. And you're hurting your team because you are the guy that should be receiving the punts. You're the guy who's dynamic. You're the guy who's sure-handed. And you have Braylon Staley, really not, he hadn't been receiving punts for us. And he gets out there and the first one goes right through his hands. And then there's a second one where he allows it to go down to the 1 yard line. So I personally don't agree with the muff punt setting the tone for the entire game, but I will say it did affect them early and often in this game. Shout out to the defense for weathering the storm. Even though Tennessee started off slow offensively, our defense did a heck of a job to really put the clamps down on Mississippi State and not collapsing when the offense wasn't going like they typically have been. We understand our offense is notorious for just blowing teams off the field within the first quarter, but the defense, they held true, and that's a credit to Tim Banks. So, Tim Banks, I'm going to talk about you.
So, speaking of the defense, Arion Carter, he had 17 total sacks. 6 of those were solo. Andre Turrentine, he had 11 tackles, 6 of those were solo. Joshua Josephs, 9 tackles, 3 solo, 1 touchdown, which was that scoop and score.
Yep, from Tyre West's big hit on Blake Shapen.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. Man, that looked like it hurt.
Go Vols.
Jeremiah Thielander, Edwin Spillman, and Edris Farouk, they all had 7 tackles. The list goes on and on and on. So Tennessee had a total of 102 tackles. 42 of those were solo. Compared to Mississippi State's total of 78 tackles, their best guy was Brandon Jennings, and he had a whopping 10. And then after that, the next closest is Zachary Tillman at 6. So, the defense definitely showed up and put the work in compared to what, they did during UAB.
Yeah, the UAB game, obviously, I was really concerned about. Now, like I already mentioned, our backups were in and kind of have a hard time deciphering what we're really seeing. But I needed to see that Tim Banks could make the adjustment. And I felt like he made the adjustment ahead of time and said, we're going to make Mississippi State one-dimensional. And they did. We forced them into running more. But defensively, just an amazing performance for our guys on the road, which has kind of been a struggle for Josh Heupel. And he gets the crucial win here. Like you mentioned, Arion Carter, just a weapon out there. You love it when Tennessee linebackers just have an amazing game because it usually means a great defensive effort and a win. And when you talk about great defensive effort, how about the last play of the game in overtime? Arion Carter gets the swat to stop the pass from being caught by, I believe it was Anthony Evans, who was the targeted receiver. So our defense, all in all, just a great job. And as I said, Tim Banks, he called a really good game. Now, granted, he did do some Tim Banks things. There were some plays where I'm like, hey, no, you need to go back to what you were just doing. It's working. Do not drop off. And, of course, Mississippi State was able to capitalize on some of those. And then, of course, there was the giving up so much running yards, which we didn't really adjust well, I felt like, in the middle of the game. But all in all, Tim Banks called a really good game. And, I mean, I have to give my hat off to him and give him some flowers because, as you all know, I was one of his biggest critics, but he really stepped up and proved that he belongs at Tennessee, making the plays there, calling the plays for the defense. This game could, however, with all that being said, with the defense playing well, could have been different. Receivers, if we but catch the football, Mike Matthews, you walk into the end zone at one point. If we don't let the ball hit our hands and go up in the air, we don't turn the ball over and give up a pick. Maybe we drive and get a field goal or something. There's a lot of things we can take away from this. Some people may even say that Tennessee tried to find a way to lose the game. I don't think so. I think Tennessee made mistakes. They made mistakes in this game, but they also made more plays than they did mistakes. And that's always the important thing.
Yeah, the biggest mistakes came at the hands or the lack thereof of the receivers.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it was 5, maybe 6 dropped passes, like crucial passes too,
yeah.
And they just weren't being caught. And that was just disappointing to see the ball just slip through fingers over and over and over again.
Yeah, this is something that we're kind of been watching over the course of a couple of games, and it's mostly Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley who have kind of had the dropsies, if you will. And that's something you got to see cleaned up from those guys. You guys are way too talented to drop big time plays. I think it was Mike Matthews that dropped a big time play that would have been a touchdown in the end zone against UAB. Maybe even the ETSU game it's happened. I mean, it's happened consistently, over the course of the 5 games we've played, I believe now. And you gotta have that cleaned up, guys. When you go into SEC play, it's that much tougher, especially when you go on the road. There's just almost unforgiving. But how about Chris Brazzell, right? He wasn't dropping anything out there. This man was a grown man amongst boys.
I said it before, and I'll say it again. It is very similar to watching Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. Watching Joey Aguilar throw the ball to Chris Brazzell, he's going to go up and make the play. You can count on him. You can count on him as long as the refs don't interfere.
Oh, and then there's that. Remember, folks, when I asked, what more can you ask for in a game? Well, you can ask for fair play. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, right? We're not trying to just every game call it out, but I'm going to call it out. We've already established that we believe that there's a narrative. You can't tell me that Chris Brazzell makes a great play, scores a touchdown, you call pass interference. But then on the other end, Chris Brazzell gets practically tackled by 3 guys, on a crucial down, but he manages to catch the ball and no pass interference. I mean, come on, guys. At this point, it's so frustrating. The Miles Kitselman, the second interception that was thrown in this game, if you watch it again, the defender has his arm. It's almost unnoticeable, but he's holding his arm, and it results in him not being able to really high point the football and make that catch. It's interference. You got to call it. It's a crucial play. You got to call it. They don't call it. But, once again, on the other end, they found a way to call Tennessee for pass interference and things that, we're like, okay, cool. If you want to call this type of game, please call it on both sides. That wasn't the case. We can go on and on in this game and talk about the bias, bad, missed calls, and so on. It was a 6-6 split with penalties, but it should have been much more. Mississippi State, they in all honesty, they were holding on to dear life, trying to, hold our defenders from getting to their quarterback, and we got to them. They played a little rough with our receivers, right? They were holding them, but there was no calls there. It's just frustrating. And had Tennessee lost this game, would we have another situation of Oklahoma-Auburn?
Yeah, I will say this. I think that after what happened in the Auburn-Oklahoma game, I had really hoped to see some decent calls from the refs, but I guess that was too much to ask for. I'll focus mostly on that Chris Brazzell offensive pass interference because that one is easily seen. Like you can tell that the Mississippi player went, oops, I fell down, And that was all it was. It wasn't that he was shoved. It wasn't that he was pushed. It wasn't that he was tackled. He lost his footing and fell down. And to say that that's an offensive pass interference is just silly. And it's disappointing, especially after the SEC officiating came out with their big apology to Auburn and the entirety of the SEC fan base, but then nothing happens to hold their referees accountable. That's what's the most frustrating about all of this, is there is no accountability for these referees. Coaches can't even say, hey, they messed up. Who's going to talk to them about this without getting fined? And I think that's bananas. It's asinine. And those referees need to start being held accountable because they are affecting outcomes of these football games. And the proof is in the pudding because of that Auburn-Oklahoma game. I will die on that hill that those referees blew that game for Auburn.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. The referees have just been terrible. Let's go into key plays in this game that really kind of summed up how Tennessee was able to win. You look at, obviously, Chris Brazzell making such a big catch on the defense, had defenders draped all over him, makes the catch, no call, doesn't matter. Grown man playing grown man football and gives Tennessee an opportunity to get some points on the board. I really felt like outside of Chris Brazzell and a couple of runs here, and take nothing away from Joey Aguilar. I mean, he was just spectacular. Even though some of his passes weren't the prettiest, his receivers still had an opportunity. It's not like in past games where our quarterbacks didn't even find the guy. Joey Aguilar, with pressure in his face, still managing to find a way to get his guys a chance to make a play on the ball. Joey Aguilar was just special, and obviously had that important game-tying touchdown to give us an opportunity to even get into an overtime. But I think the biggest keys was mostly on the defense. I mean, obviously Colton Hood had that pick six. Boo Carter, the play before that pick six, every time Boo Carter gets on the field and makes a big play like that, it seems like the next play we go and do something special, a scoop and score or something. Well, Boo Carter lays out Evans, and I'm thinking they're going to have to, take a timeout to make sure this man's okay. Luckily, he was able to get up and get off the field, but off the field he went. And then, of course, Tennessee gets the pick six. Well, then, when you got to have it, right, Tyre West and Joshua Josephs comes off the edge, and I mean lays out Blake Shapen, puts him on the highlight reel of a Rocky Top beatdown. He fumbles the football, and it's a scoop and score. Let's go Vols. I mean, that's what you got to have from your defense. And like I said, Tim Banks really put his guys in a position to be successful in this game, and that's all I ever wanted. That's all I want from our defensive coordinator. Put us in a position to be successful, and the defense responded. They didn't give up. When the offense needed it, the defense went and got it, and they kept us in this game. And obviously, you get into the drive before overtime, which Josh Heupel has been criticized heavily on. I'm going to say this. Josh Heupel didn't want to give Mississippi State any sort of opportunity to drive down the field and get a lucky play or whatever the case and kick a field goal. Nope, Josh Heupel was going to eat the clock. And to be honest with you, he did all right. The problem was on that final play that Joey Aguilar ends up, I think he throws the ball away. He had a wide open DeSean Bishop, and he really missed an opportunity to dump it off to his running back, and his running back pick up 10, 15 yards and get us in field goal range to give Max Gilbert an opportunity to win this game in the final seconds. Now, of course, Tennessee fans would have been nervous, but what would it have been if Max Gilbert would have got a chance to kick that, make it, and redeem himself from the Georgia game? Going into overtime, I know if you're a Tennessee fan, you remember how we went in overtime with Georgia. We didn't win the coin toss in that one. Well, we didn't win it in this one either. And I'm going, oh, not again. Well, our offense did not disappoint. First play, handoff to DeSean Bishop, and that man said, "I'm going to the house." Touchdown, Tennessee. And then, of course, defense gets out there and puts on a clinic and pretty much, just blankets Mississippi State with Arion Carter dropping back into coverage and, swatting the ball down on that fourth down play. Just an amazing game to, in a sense, come out and find a way to win when the referees clearly weren't on your side. The plays just weren't happening for you. You still found a way to strain and get the big W in Mississippi State. I have nothing but respect for our Vols for not giving up in this game because, let's just be honest. They could have, because it wasn't going their way. When we needed to make plays, we made plays. When we needed stops, we made stops. Tennessee didn't give up. And shout out to Mississippi State. This is a good football team, and they're going to go win some good football games and beat some teams out there. And people are going to be like, wait, Mississippi State? Yeah, no. Them playing Tennessee close, outside of the missed calls, it wasn't a fluke, guys. Should Tennessee have won this game more comfortably? Sure, right? Tennessee should have been able to take a knee at this game, and it probably should have been maybe like 31-38, 24-28, something like that. 10, 14-point game. But it fell the way it fell. And now what do? Tennessee responded. So good job to Tim Banks. Good job to the secondary. Good job to the D-line for getting to the shout out just to the defense. I'm proud of our boys. Final thoughts, Jay? What do you think?
I would say I am super impressed with how disciplined the defense was and how disciplined the offensive line was also, because those cowbells were obnoxious.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could be wrong, so somebody please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't think that there was any offsides on the defense. And there was only one false start for the offense because you had a brand new young man come out there
David
for
Sanders,
the first
our
time.
Our star tackle.
And, probably the adrenaline's going and those stupid cowbells are ringing. But overall, to see the defense and the offensive line be so disciplined with that crowd was super impressive. It was really, really impressive because it is hard to not get penalized like that on the road. And that's for any team.
Jay, you took the words right out of my mouth. I couldn't agree more with you on that. Vol Faithful, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to our channel. Continue to promote us and help us with our algorithm. We appreciate you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, go Big Orange, go Vols.